Hey everybody, it's Jessica DeMassa with What's the Future Health? I am talking to the who's who of health tech and healthcare innovation. And oh damn it, look who is back here to talk about the launch of his brand new company, Zeus, Z-U-S, the father of Athena. We have none other than its founder and CEO, Jonathan Bush. Mr. Bush, it's a pleasure to see you.
It's a pleasure to be back with you, Jess.
Oh my gosh.
This is very cool for me.
Not only are you launching, but you have raised $35 million in a Series A led by Andreessen. You get Julie Yu on this board too, like she's on Fireflies. Right. Other investors in the round, F Prime Capital, Maverick Ventures, and Rock Health. And what you are doing, and I'm going to paraphrase and then you're going to break it down for us. What you are doing is you have created a company that is going to be the industry's first shared development platform backed by a single shared data record. So the whole middle of this development platform, you guys are going to be like the Amazon Web Services founding the internet, only you're going to do that for healthcare. Everything's going into one data record, kind of like an EMR, but the front end is left to those who know it best. Yes? Unpack this for me.
We're done. That's it.
It's because there's a lot to talk about here.
It's BYO EMR. It's a Build-A-Bear for EMRs and patient relationship management, CRMs, for all these fabulous new venture-backed digital healthcare companies that are being born and funded. And each of them have to today build the entire full stack of technology or lose the ability to truly customize what they offer and have a unique a value prop if they're going to buy, not there's anything wrong with Athena or Epic or Cerner or any of the off-the-shelf companies. But in buying those, you lose the ability to build your own thing. And what we would like to do at Zeus is two things: give people the tools to quickly build their own thing well, and give them the benefit of everybody else's insight on each record that they serve by creating, as you point out, a shared record, not shipping records back and forth, but co-use of records.
The word I saw in the press release was we're co-authoring interoperability, which I love the sentiment behind that. But talk through both sides of this for me for somebody who may not have a tech background. So my audience has a lot of investors, but also has a lot of people on the innovation side of things who might be buying this stuff in, or HR benefits people. Like, explain to us, like, from the tech standpoint, if you are gonna to offer these developers this middle that's already baked, like, how revolutionary is that? Can you give us some context around that?
Not revolutionary. I mean, today, many companies, when they want to take payment, pass up the wonderful opportunity to build direct connections to all the different merchant processors in America. They just go to the Stripe developer kit, grab the API and drop it into their workflow. And they've eliminated, millions of lines of code and maintenance for years to come by just using that API and paying for that service. Same thing with Twilio and messaging. So this concept is not a new one. Adding a specialist to a channel or referring a patient to a specialist or ordering a prescription or a lab test or any other diagnostic, all of these are commonly performed activities that now thousands of tech-forward companies are performing, in addition to the traditional medical groups that we're used to seeing do this work. And these guys have developers and plans and product managers, and they would like to have the tech in pieces on the table for them to build their own thing with. But building the entire thing from scratch, you have a little bit of a, too much work for too little gain in the early days. Problem.
Can you give us some examples, like specifically, like you had mentioned, like, okay, for payment processing, Stripe, like what are some of the things in healthcare that could be standardized that are not standardized in the middle of that stack?
Sure. I mean, the entire notion of making an appointment.
Okay.
All of the basic every telemed, right? Connecting to a video stream that's HIPAA compliant, texting a care team and turning the text thread into, problems and care plans and treatments and tasks. All of those routines are being built, custom built, or people are buying Salesforce or whatever to replicate those kinds of capabilities. We'd like to have APIs for those that people can use in their own software very quickly and reliably. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, have the record that they connect to be be connected to a common master patient index for the nation, and
Okay.
therefore eliminate all the digging about in the trash trying to find CCDs and claims and labs and other data on members that you may sell on, because now it's illegal to block that data. And so somebody ought to just consolidate and simplify the getting and organizing and normalizing of that data.
Let's talk about the single record, because the single record has been like the holy grail, it feels like, for everybody in health data for a while. So
Yes.
how are you going to pull this off?
We are not the first people who have cut
Exactly.
coconuts in half and set out to get the grail. We are the 1,000th. There's three big things that are different. First, there's been a change in law. So the Cures Act, which I worked very hard on, lobbied for, et cetera, back in 2016, goes into final enforcement July 1 for claims, and a little early in 2022 for all medical records. That allows any American, not just a HIPAA certified, NPI doctor, to demand that their data be sent to the apps and services that they care about and that they want to make more powerful. So that's a change in law. Obviously, the change in the business environment is pretty profound. We are all now very comfortable with telemedicine, having had 2 years to only get telemedicine. The venture capital community has gone berserk in this space. So in 2020 alone, almost $15 billion in venture capital went into the tens of thousands of companies that are offering these kind of newer age behavior determinant type care delivery companies, Payvider, TechViders, that are kind of crossing the lines of past market delineations. So there's huge new buyers for this that, as you point out, are not like the providers and payers of yore, who very much did not want their data shared.
Right.
Did want to duplicate tests, did want to duplicate people, did want people to think twice before going to a cheaper place for a given diagnostic, for fear that the record would get screwed up. And these are all not bad people, but there is a problem when you're barely breaking even and someone's going to take all your highest margin business from you. This new generation of company isn't built on 90% gross margin X-rays.
Nope.
These are all very low fixed cost companies that are sort of all margin, if you think about it, once you get the tech paid for. So they don't have that need. And they are largely fractile in their business model, right? You got one company that's doing nothing but alcohol treatment disorder. You got another one that's focused on opioids. You got another one that's focused on asthma. You got another one that's focused on, just hypertension. These guys are not gonna make it if they can't then pan back and see the whole picture of the patient. So they actually selfishly want data sharing and insight sharing across the various slices of a patient's life, whereas the previous generation did not. So those three things are, and of course, lastly, we're now used to the idea of build-a-bear technology. We're used to the idea of not coding everything up ourselves. We're used to grabbing Twilio and AWS and all of the load leveling capabilities that come extra at AWS and all the Stripe technologies for taking payment. These are not new novel ideas anymore. Outside of healthcare, they're quite normal.
Well, so, talk to me about the incumbents then that you had mentioned, because like you had said, like they historically have not wanted to share their data.
Right.
And now I understand that the law is there that's going to make them, there's a market coming up around them that's pushing for this. But
Right.
it's like, how does this really happen in practice? Because you can see it if you look at some of those companies that are out there, there's a reason there's a gigantic interoperability showcase at HIMSS, right? Because it's like stand out remarkable that people were able to pull this off and get Cerner to talk to Epic, get to talk to Allscripts, to Athena. So how does this all work with the incumbents? Where's their upside on this?
They don't have an upside in this.
Okay.
Now, there are lots of regular old doctors and hospitals that don't want to share data, that do want better automation, that do want cleaner billing, that do want new technologies of different kinds. And so it's not like the traditional players have run out of things to sell. But there's this new generation of company that really excited me. I worked very hard to try to attract sort of entrepreneurs and product managers and engineers that could go anywhere and never really thought healthcare because it's too boring and too lame and not sexy and too regulated. And I worked, very hard, acted like a real clown at times, trying to make it sexy and fun to come build things in healthcare. Now that is not an agenda to work on. They're all here. Jess, they're all here. And the key now is to make sure that shit works for them. That, when they put in $10 of effort, they can get $100 of reward. And so that condition is now met for the first time. If you had to sell Zeus to traditional doctors and hospitals to sort of sell against the Athenas of the world, Zeus would not make it. And I wouldn't want to, compete with dear old Athena. I think the excitement is with these new companies, the more disruption, please, early members that have now become thousands of companies.
I want to come back to that in a second. So don't think we're going to walk away from that. But I want to talk about your customer base because you guys already have some customers that are using this. You're already using Zeus. So City Block, Firefly, Oak Street, and then Dorsata, which is a specific, it focuses on maternity, right? And layers on top of the EMR there. So talk to me about this client base and who else would be, I mean, like you said, like the more disruption, please crowd, but is there any subset of them that would work best for Zeus?
Yeah, so first of all, nobody's using anything in production. These are guys that are early alpha builders, God bless them, that want to be leading edge and start we've got about 30 other companies that are in the Zeus community, like a More Disruption Please, kind of a booster group. We have a chapter on regulation and working with telemedicine law and other blockers to innovation. We have a chapter on tech and innovation tools, and then we have a chapter on business models. And we hope all your listeners join up the Zeus community. It's on the website by the time we're watching this interview. But I think the place we're at right now is day zero. So we've got the first feeds of payer data going into the first modicum of a platform. So the way the platform is going to work is you're going to have the MPI data as like layer one of the cake. Everybody can access the MPI like you can access LinkedIn, right? You don't need to be a LinkedIn member or pay anything. Right? Second layer is the NCDI. It's all of the data that is now legally required sharing, right? And that has its own governance access rules. So you have to be a doctor, or you have to have the explicit permission, a doctor treating a patient, or the explicit permission of that patient, that person, to get access to that second layer of cake. And then the third layer of cake is the proprietary vault of each builder. So Firefly, it's all the exhaust from that text app where people are getting most of their care now through a continuous text thread. Interpreted and analyzed and turned into orders and prescriptions and things like that. Those three layers, with the turn of the right missile keys, can be shared across the entire builder community with a specific partner, with someone that a given patient wants to see a whole picture with, or with none, based on obviously the choices of the builders and the patients. But where we are right now is just in the very beginning of getting that first feed, that first and second layer of cake in place. We expect in the first year of this to have all of the tools you need to build your own CRM on Zeus, and to have that CRM connect to a pretty darn robust, normalized 360-degree view of all the data that exists on your patients, without you having to go around with a little bag, a little handkerchief with your snacks and go payer to payer and hospital to hospital.
Is that how they're doing it these days?
That's what it felt like for me, man. Evan Grossman he's building the data aggregation and enrichment platform at Zeus, but he did all the connectivity at Athena. He had 400 people doing ETL for 10 years. Wow. Feed by feed by feed by feed. This time around, we expect it to go a whole lot quicker. And more importantly, we'll be able to spend a lot more of our time on enriching and normalizing, mapping in the Google location feed and the census data and all this other incredible stuff that the marketing world has on people that people in healthcare just simply don't have.
Don't use, or they don't use it. They don't have it.
Right.
Okay.
So that's where we'll spend our time this time around.
All right. So More Disruption Please. We've talked about that. That was a movement. Unbreak Healthcare, another Jonathan Bush-led movement.
Yeah.
I've also seen you now talk about this as a movement. So what is this movement about? Does it have a catchy name yet? Will there be a Zeus cloud party to kick this off? Like, I need details on the movement.
Naming rights are available. Just put it out.
The WPF Health movement.
Sponsor. We are welcome. We'd be happy to call this the IBM Disruption Movement with the right bonus check from IBM. No, I think we've got our own this thing called Zeus Community, and we are going to do some larger movement work around, as I mentioned, the regulatory, the technical tools, and the business model stuff. We're going to have in-person meetings and then ongoing chatter. Andreessen Horowitz, who is leading this round, has done a huge amount of brand building for themselves in accessing entrepreneurs. Their Healthcare Eats World, Data Eats World podcasts, and their hackathons, and it's the greatest self-promotion machine ever built in the venture capital space. And I'm very excited at getting that machine aligned with Zeus and making sure that every new startup that's building something digital for healthcare finds out about Zeus, because it's obviously much easier to build on Zeus from scratch than to take something you've already built and kind of chisel pathways over.
Okay.
So we love the early guys. I think it's easier to use them. It'll be worth it using it for very mature people as we get more mature ourselves, but we really want those early guys. And so if Andreessen wants to call it the Andreessen disruption, please, I'm all for it.
You know what? They should, talk to me too, I think.
I bet you they would.
I need some more Julie Yu in my life.
I bet you right this second I'll text Julie Yu and she'll be on with you before you know it.
I love it. I'd love to pick her brain. Okay, so I have another question for you then here too, because I love to talk you've been around this industry for so long, and I want to talk real quick and just see, with Zeus and with what you're doing here, enable these companies to skip that time-consuming, expensive, process of having to develop the same stuff over and over again, and also benefit from that common record. I think about that, and I think about that in the context of what we experienced in the pandemic, where everybody really felt the friction of just how bad things were in the traditional healthcare system with trying to get virtual care, with trying to find records from multiple physical offices that were like nobody was in the office to fax something over to you. So, do you feel like we're at a point right now where the market is starting to create almost like a secondary healthcare market for certain things? We've seen the rise of these primary care, yours included, companies that are kind of operating outside, adjacent to the system, building their own networks of providers, offering their own benefits now, starting to design their own things. And we've also seen, retail jump in a way they never have before. So you've got Walmart with their healthcare centers. You've got CVS Minute Clinic doing mental health now. And you have Amazon, of course, and it's now launched its own care provider. So what are your thoughts on this? Have we moved where now the innovators realize they're no longer welcome in the data locked down traditional healthcare system? We just started our own over here. What do you think?
Well, it's funny. I think maybe it was in one of these interviews with you at Health 2.0 where I said the great thing about healthcare is you can be 20 years late and be freaking innovative. Star Wars 1 is just coming out in healthcare's movie theater. And the notion of Clay Christensen, disruptive innovation, going outside the core, doing something instead of badly compared to the establishment, but on a different demand curve, on a different cost curve, just radically cheaper, radically more integrated in its experience, and therefore radically more asset efficient. That is not a new idea. That's a
healthcare. It is.
That's a thing that's been going on for a bazillion years. And healthcare, there's a lot of blockers to disruptive innovation in healthcare, much of which we come by honestly, right? We love our hospital systems. Look at all the lives saved and the heroics, that came out of these medical centers once they stopped killing people by accident, when they realized that intubation was not the right first move. But these are places that we hold dear for good reasons. Mm-hmm. And healthcare is a safety net service in addition to being a product, and so we're afraid of destabilizing it. And so there are good reasons as well as naughty ones why disruptive innovation happens so slowly. and that the pain and the cost threshold needs to get so very impossibly high before we'll allow energy to leak into disruptive technologies. But as you point out, I think the leaks have happened.
Yeah.
I think these new approaches are getting real oxygen. They're getting real growth. They're getting real capital. They're getting real recognition. Firefly obviously is my favorite of them, but Amazon's probably not badly run.
If they got a shot.
And there are many others, and a lot of the traditional navigator companies that weren't doing that well, that I was a happy shareholder in, are now saying, I can't just navigate. I got to do it. I got to do the care. And then maybe buy the esoteric stuff rather than just give referrals to it. So people are starting to really put their money where their mouth is, and these tech models. And I think the notion of a shared record and a unified data model that's bigger than, poor dear fire, which has some data points that are really, and there is an iteration process there, but it's not sufficient for what we're talking about. That these new models are now reaching critical mass. And that's why I think now is a time for Zeus. I think that now there's enough, it's definitely happening. Is it going to happen really, really slow with way too much capital, or is it going to happen really quickly with a lot less? And I think if there are some common utilities that speed people up and get their effectiveness up by making it easier to see what's going on with people, I think then, we'll get to gratification quicker.
All right. So how do people get involved with the Zeus community that you've talked about here? It's ZUS for those who are
Zeus.health. Google it.
Zeus.health. Perfect.
Zeus.health. I think we've got ZeusHealth.com and we've got Zeus.health, but Zeus.health is so cool, I think.
It is.
I love that. It turns out you can't change your Tesla account to a .health because they've already become old tech compared to everybody else. I guess they don't do the .health extension. Leland, if you're listening, please, buddy, come along. But you can Google it. Whatever, the 17th, the site will be up, and we'll have our little minimum product there, just that 360 and some basic tools for building an EHR and building a patient relationship management app.
Patient management.
And then we'll add the EHR threads and payment threads, and all the other work streams will, get online as fast as we can go. Hopefully all your listeners will call all their best engineer buddies and have them all join forces with us as quickly as possible.
All right. Are you building an EHR? What are you doing over there now? Now I got to ask you.
We're giving you the utilities to build an EHR. So we want people to build their own. This is a company for builders.
Okay.
Zeus has no plans to be to sell to doctors or hospitals or even to consumers. We want to be the inside. We want to be the toast inside these cool technology stuff.
I love it. So lesson learned from Athena. You're like, somebody else can do that part now. I'm
Yeah.
just going to do the cool stuff.
Well, Jeff Bezos said of fourth grade, I really liked fourth grade, but I don't think I want to go back.
No.
And I really liked, buying wine,
Zeus cloud party. I'm going to need a Zeus cloud party.
I still am in touch with, dozens of the docs and hospital executives that I got to meet in my years at Athena and just loved it. But I'd love to coach and advise others doing that and instead really focus on the builders who are a really stimulating and exciting and just intellectually electric audience for me to work with. And I feel not that I'm repeating myself and pitching it like Willie Loman and the Felices, like I did for my later years at Athena, but that I'm really being challenged and thinking and learning as much as I'm pitching, more than I'm pitching even, which for me is gets me back to work. That excites me a lot.
That's awesome. There's a lot of exciting business models out there for some of these health tech companies. So it'll be awesome to see how they can kind of skip some of the learning curve and the pain of having to do some of this other stuff. And also who it might attract in that isn't currently in healthcare. Like you said, you've gone after those engineers. Curious to see if there are any of those other companies out there that are currently in fintech or in retail or anything like that, who the hard part was figuring out the middle part that was so healthcare. What happens if that goes away? That's pretty cool.
You make a good point. And, in healthcare, we talk about big data, and big in healthcare is, impossibly small to somebody who's been working at Google on search or Facebook or, even Pinterest. I mean, the scale of the petabytes that they have in live compute that they're, searching through on a regular basis, and the number of identities and the softness of the match data that they have to get the right person matched with the right feed and engine, et cetera, is, science at a level that people in healthcare just haven't even started to contemplate. And my hope is that with some good platform traction, we'll get some of those people. Not that it's very important to, be able to Google cats carrying dogs up stairways on YouTube. But I think we can find better work for these guys if we can find them a data environment that is at the scale that uses their skills. And that's one of my fondest hopes for Zeus.
I love that. We'll leave it there. So Jonathan, good luck. You'll have to come back and let us know how it's going. Jonathan Bush, everybody, the founder and CEO of Zeus, ZUS Health. Go find it at zeus.health. And yeah, you'll have to for sure come back because I can't.
I'll be back.
I know. You couldn't stay away.
The studio door every week until I get dragged away.
I'm going to make you a weatherman. I'm going to toss it to you mid-interview. And now from a weather report on how things are faring.
I'll be there. Yes, absolutely.
Jonathan Bush. I love when you talk to me about clouds.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. We will talk to you soon. If you want to check out more interviews with those who are changing the way we do healthcare, please head on over to my YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/WTF Health. We'll talk to you guys soon. Jonathan, thanks again. We'll see you.